Hey, good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning. Hope everybody is having a fantastic start to the day and everyone's doing great. Just let me know in the comments, folks, if you can see me and hear me okay. Let me know who you are, where you're tuning in from, which city, and let us all know if you're open to networking and definitely put it in the comments and make good use of this so that all of you are taking advantage of this as a networking opportunity. But welcome for those of you tuning in. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Let me just quickly turn on my Instagram as well because I'm live on Instagram. Hey, how's it going? What's up to everyone out there on Instagram? Thanks so much for tuning in, and shout out to everyone on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on where else? YouTube. Where else am I? Periscope. Shout out to everyone on Periscope as well. Hey, Sumant, I see Sumant tuning in on LinkedIn. Sumant, you usually tune in on Instagram, right? But appreciate you tuning in, my friend. Appreciate that. And shout out again to everyone on Instagram. So let us know in the comments, folks, where you're tuning in from, who you are, where you're tuning in from. Give us your quick pitch right in the comments. I want to make sure all of you are able to network with each other. We got Abhishek all the way from Nagpur, India. Wow, awesome! Thanks so much for tuning in, Abhishek. Appreciate that. We got Saurabh from India. Saurabh says yes, I'm audible. Awesome. Thanks for confirming that, Saurabh. And we got Luke tuning in. Hey, Luke, nice to see you here. Appreciate you tuning in. And Luke is open to networking. So, folks, it's a great networking opportunity. Put in the comments if you're open to networking. Great chance for everyone to start expanding your network because you know that saying, right? Your network is your net worth or something like that. That's what they say at least. But I hope all of you make use of this session and make it very interactive. Let me know in the comments. On YouTube, we got Oyinte who joined in. Thanks for tuning in, Oyinte. I appreciate you tuning into the Instagram Live. And we got Jonas here, Jonas Zanini. Hey, guys, joining from Toronto. Awesome. Thanks for tuning in, Jonas. Rosemary, hey, how's it going? Nice to see you here, my friend. Appreciate you tuning in. Good to see you here, Rosemary. So, folks, today's session, right? It's going to be a very informative session. Might be, stuff you already know maybe for some of you, but what I'm hoping is that I'm going to open a lot of eyes to some of you in regards to interview questions, right? Obviously, interview questions are a big part of interviews, right? And what I want to kind of give a heads up to all of you guys on is a very important factor about interview questions that a lot of people might not be aware of, or even if they are aware of, might not be paying conscious attention to, right? And I actually did a post about this yesterday on LinkedIn. Look, folks, those of you at interviews, like you just have so many things to consider, right? And literally in milliseconds or seconds, you have to evaluate the question. You got to figure out, what they're asking, what aspects of your background you want to talk about. You got to consider who you're speaking to, who your audience is, right? Who your audience is. Is it technical people? Is it non-technical people? You got to make sure your response appeals and makes sense to everyone present. So a whole bunch of stuff, right? So I'm not trying to throw in a whole nother, curveball at all of you guys, but I'd rather you feel overwhelmed, but more more well informed about interviews versus you going in with the idea of or maybe a lack of knowledge in regards to this particular topic that I'm going to be speaking about today. So quick shout out to Chohan_Joni on Instagram for tuning in. Shout out to Vrushali Shelke joining in from Instagram. So appreciate you tuning in there. And we got some more people tuning in. Rosemary says she's open to networking. Fantastic. And we got Hi Dean. Good morning. Hey, sometimes it doesn't show the name, so my apologies. I'm not sure who that is, but good morning to you as well. Okay, so interview questions, right? Now, in regards to your interview questions, firstly, what I want everyone to do is, because I'm just thinking ahead here. I want everyone to put in those typical interview questions you get asked that you somewhat struggle with. And when I say struggle with, in terms of you're not sure how to respond. And I want you to put them in the comments because I'm going to do a quick evaluation of those questions, after I finish presenting today's topic. Right. So I want this to be interactive. I want all of you guys to put in the comments, and don't be shy. no one's judging anyone here, and if any, it's a very open session. I'm not asking you to put in the questions and say, hey, that's so dumb, how could you not get that? Nothing like that. What I do want to do is I want to actually give you an evaluation of how potentially the question being asked might be very different from what the expected response is. So in the comments, folks, I want you to put in any of those questions that you get asked at interviews that you're unsure. Okay, how should I respond to this? Right now, I'm not going to give you the response, like the answer, right? I'm not a technical person, in the sense of I'm not a developer, I'm not a sysadmin, I'm not a project manager or business analyst or anything like that. But I wanted to make a point, a very important point in regards to how you should be structuring your response. So any questions you've been asked, typical questions you've been asked at interviews, and you're uncertain how to respond to them, or what the interview is trying to get at, I want you to put in the comments, right? And I'm going to evaluate those questions shortly. Pankaj Jain. Okay, so good. Pankaj, you put a great question there. Yeah. So folks, put those questions in the comments. So salary expectations, I'm not talking about those kind of questions, Abhishek. I'm more so asking about, questions in relation to the role, the position, the skills, the responsibilities, the duties, the project, those kind of questions. So let me clarify, not the salary expectation questions. I'm not covering that today, folks. This is going to be strictly in relation to the role, the duties, the responsibilities, the project, the company, the organizations, any of those kind of type of questions. Just a few shout outs. We got Kostub tuning in from Vaughn. Pankaj, thanks so much for tuning in. Oleinka is open to networking. Awesome. Vinita, good morning. Hey, good morning to you, Vinita. Okay, fantastic. Yeah, so just keep those questions coming, right? Now, what I wanted to inform all of you about in regards to interview questions is do not respond, or do not start responding to the question with the assumption that what they're asking is what they want to find out. So I'm going to repeat that. Do not respond to an interview question under the assumption that what they're asking is literally what they want, what they're trying to find out. Now, what I mean by that is, so there's, and I don't want to, if any of you feel confused at any point, feel free to let me know in the comments, right? I don't want to confuse anyone, but I want you to be taking notes because this is a very important topic I'm going to be speaking about today, right? So two important things all of you guys need to understand about questions is, right? And again, this is something you have to evaluate on the spot. I do understand that's challenging, but it's something that you guys had to figure out and get this handled. So when being asked a question, there's two things you need to consider whenever you're being asked an interview question. The first thing is what you need to figure out right on the spot is, why are they asking me this question? So this is where you have to kind of, figuratively speaking, you have to actually leave your body and put yourself in the interviewer's position. Why are they asking you this question, right? Number two is, what are they really trying to find out? Why are they even asking this question? What's the point of this question? Why are they asking it? Second part is, what's the real motivation here? What are they really trying to find out in regards to the question? Right? Because a lot of times the question they're asking, you might be giving, your standard, typical, logical response, but a lot of times what they're actually trying to find out is completely different from the question being asked, right? So I came up with a few examples, guys, and because I wanted to really drive this point across in terms of what I'm talking about. Now, and I came up with a couple of sample questions here. So an example question would be, describe which tools you used for solving XYZ. Right? Describe which tools you use for solving XYZ. Now, whatever your field is, most of you are in tech, so it could be tech tools. If you're in a different industry, that's fine. Just change the word tools into something else. And again, describe which tools you use for solving XYZ. XYZ could be a project, it could be a problem, could be some kind of a scenario, whatever the case is. Now, a lot of you, when you hear that question, you go right into thinking, okay, yeah, all right. So let me just talk about whatever tools that I've been using, and that's what they want to hear about. They want to hear about how which tools I can use and how I did it and how I did the resolution. Now, they definitely want to hear that, folks. But what is the underlying So let me kind of rewind this back, and I am freestyling here, so forgive me if I seem a little scattered here, but the question being asked can actually give you a clue, folks, as to what challenges they themselves at the organization are facing. That's probably one of the major points I'm trying to make here with such an example. So if the interviewer asks you, describe which tools you're using for solving XYZ, and going back to those two questions you need to ask for yourself, right? So why are they asking that? So firstly, why would an interviewer ask you, describe which tools you're using for solving XYZ? Well, there's a few assumptions I can make, right? Just if I were to hear such a question, the first thing is what I'm thinking is, in terms of why they would be asking that question is, well, they're probably experiencing a similar or same problem in terms of whatever XYZ is, right? So let's say the problem, let's let XYZ represent an implementation project, right? So the question would be, describe which tools you use for solving, sorry, let me reword that. Describe which tools you used for this implementation project, right? Or problem XYZ within an implementation project, or whatever the issue was, right? So what that does, folks, is it gives you a clue as to what the potential problem areas might be at the organization themselves, and that's probably why they're asking you the question, right? So while they do want to find out what tools you used and how you went around resolving problem XYZ, they definitely want to hear about that. But what they're really trying to find out is whether you have resolved a similar problem, and they're also giving you kind of a hint or a clue as to the problem that they're experiencing at their end, at their organization, right? So when they ask you, describe which tools you're using for problem XYZ, you definitely want to mention which tools you use and you know what the problem is, what they solve. But this might also be an opportunity for you to counter with your own follow-up question and find out from them, hey, Dean, so you know, which tools are you using, and are you experiencing a similar problem at your organization? Right. So what I'm trying to say, folks, is sometimes the question is a great opportunity for the question itself reveals more information about whatever problem or issue or hurdle or barrier the organization is experiencing at their organization. So don't just listen to the question and consider the question at a very surface level. By the way, I see Kostub says that he's not able to hear. If anyone else is experiencing that, let me know. Like, I'm not sure if the audio is if there's an issue with the audio. So give me a heads up on that. But continuing with what I was saying, folks, is do not just consider the question at the surface level, right? The question itself always gives a clue as to what the potential problems might be at the organization, right? So, for example, that example question I said, describe which tools you're using for solving problem XYZ. Chances are they themselves are experiencing problem XYZ at their organization. Now, some of you might be like, oh, well, Dean, you know, that's pretty obvious, or, you know, who cares? So what? What's the big deal? Well, the thing is, after you finish responding to your question, you now can engage in a little bit of probing and investigating at your end as well, right? So after you give your response, you say, oh, well, you know, I use tool XYZ, blah, 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 and this is what I did, and this is how I resolved it, whatever. After you finish completing your response, it's completely fine for you to now counter with a question of your own, and you can ask, hey, Dean, so you know, are you experiencing the same problem at your organization as well? Then I might say, yeah. I mean, we're pretty much experiencing the same thing, which is why I wanted to ask you, you know, how you want to run around resolving a similar problem. And this is where, folks, you can get an actual conversation going and probing and investigating what exactly the problem is at their organization, further opening up more options for you to sell yourself as a viable candidate for the position, right? Now, that's one possibility. The other possibility could be that they use certain tools at their organization, and they're trying to find out if you have experience with those specific tools. So you going about talking about whatever your favorite tool is doesn't really, I mean, yeah, it might matter to the organization, to the interviewer, but what they're trying to figure out could potentially be whether your tools, the tools that you've been using, are the same or similar tools used at their organization. That might be another possibility, right? So this is where, and this is why, folks, yesterday, why I mentioned in my video, you have to pay complete 100% attention to the question being asked, because because just like how I kind of gave you an example just now, you have to be evaluating the question itself in terms of why they're asking it. What are they really trying to find out? Is the question they're asking connected to a potential problem they themselves are currently experiencing at their organization? Or are they trying to figure out if you know, my experience, if I have experience with certain, you know, whatever XYZ that they're using at their organization? So this is why if you make that evaluation that there might be a secondary agenda to the question, And it's not just something that where they just want a response to what's being asked, but there's a hidden aspect to it as well and which would allow you to have a further probing and investigative and kind of a discovery kind of a conversation in regards to the whatever the problem is. Then you need to ask a follow-up question after you respond, so you can uncover those aspects. So let's say someone asked me, so Dean, what tools do you use for solving XYZ? I'll give my practiced or surface level response. I'll say, oh well, I would personally use tool X, Y, and Z for such and such problem, blah blah blah, and then I'll give an example of a previous project I did and say, yeah, this is what happened, this was the problem, this was the solution, this is what I delivered, these were the results, blah blah. And then after I finish responding, I would say, so hey, Mr. and Mrs. Interviewer, just curious, are you using the same tools at your organization? Like, which tools are you using? And then the interviewer might say, oh, well, we actually use something a bit different, right? We use actually tool ABC. And maybe I forgot to mention tool ABC, right? And I could say, oh, well, I definitely have worked with tool ABC. So I can now clarify that at least, right? Now, it doesn't end there. I can also probe and investigate and find out whether they're experiencing a similar problem, and which is why they asked me this question in the first place, right? So I might say, and also, by the way, Mr. and Mrs. Hiring Manager, were you, the reason why you were asking me about problem XYZ is, are you currently experiencing a similar issue in your organization at this time, or in the current project you're currently working on, right? So the point is, folks, you got to read, you sometimes have to read between the lines. Now, this does not apply to each and every interview question, right? That's not what I'm saying. This does not apply to each and every interview question you're being asked. What I'm saying is you have to make that, and again, this might take practice. This does require you to, again, pay full attention to the question being asked, right? Because if you're not paying full attention, if you're not evaluating what's really being asked, you might miss out on this, right? So you got to figure out whether there's kind of whether you need to read between the lines and figure out if there is something else that they're trying to find out, or if they're actually giving you a hint as to what problems or issues they're having at their current organization, right? Soha says, great going, Dean. Awesome. Hey, good to see you, Soha. Hope you're doing great. Thanks so much. Soha was actually a previous guest on one of my previous live shows. So shout out to Soha. Appreciate you tuning in, Soha. And so a couple of other, example questions, guys, is which project of yours did you enjoy the most, right? Sometimes, some candidates tell me they get asked this sometimes, of all of your projects, which one did you enjoy the most? Now, what are they really trying to find out? Think about it, folks. What are they really trying to find out by asking this question? Sure, they maybe want to find out from you, like whatever, what was your favorite project? But what they're really trying to find out is this person's favorite project relevant to us, right? Is this person, whatever types of project this person enjoys, are they going to enjoy the kind of projects that we're going to be working on at our organization? That's what they're really trying to find out. They're not just trying to find out what you like and what your favorite project was and why, how passionate and excited you were about it. Yeah, sure, they want to know that. But what they're really trying to find out is, would you the projects that they have at their organization, would they really appeal to you? Would you really enjoy those projects? Are those projects relevant to you? Or are you going to come on board, work on these projects, get bored, and then move on to what you're really passionate about? Maybe that's what they're really trying to find out, folks. So this is where you got to make that evaluation, right? Let's say it's a retail company, right? Let's say it's a retail company. Your experience, you have done projects in retail, you've done projects in e-commerce, logistics, and a whole bunch of different industries, right? And they ask you, so Dean, can you tell us about one of your sorry, I use my own name, but let's say they ask you, so can you tell us about your favorite project that you worked on, some of the challenges you experienced in regards to that, and what was the outcome? Now, if you start talking about, not your retail projects, but you start talking about your logistics projects, now maybe that's not a deal breaker. I'm not saying that's going to make them feel like, okay, yeah, let's forget about this person. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, it would have been more effective for you to talk about your retail projects as opposed to your other projects, simply because you're interviewing at a retail organization. What they're really trying to find out, folks, is if retail falls under some of your favorite projects, right? And they're trying to evaluate, okay, especially if it's a full-time, long-term, a full-time position, they're trying to evaluate the long-term investment, right? Is this person going to stay here, enjoy these projects, or are they going to move on to what they really like to do? It's possible that might be the read between the lines thing they're asking, from this question, right? Another example: how do you ensure successful collaboration with other teams? Right now, what are they really asking when they're asking you this question, or what hint does it give regarding the organization, right? What hint does it really give you in regards to what's being asked, or what problem the organization's experiencing themselves? Now, they definitely could be inquiring about how your teamwork and collaboration skills are. Absolutely, 100%. They're trying to find that out. How you operate as a team member, how you how you handle those collaboration processes and stuff like that. 100%, absolutely, they could be asking that. But what does that question also reveal, folks? It could reveal that they potentially they themselves are experiencing collaboration issues, right? Why else? I mean, think about it. Why else would an organization be asking you that, or an interviewer asking you that? People are not just randomly asking you random questions, folks. There's always a motivation behind interview questions, and if nothing else, that's what I want you to take away from this session. There's always a motivation. There's always a reason why people are asking you questions. And don't just think about it from your perspective, right? That's the biggest mistake a lot of job seekers make, is you're only thinking about these things from your perspective, from your angle. And you're not shifting into their shoes and trying to put yourself in their shoes and figure out, why would I be asking such a question from a candidate? Why would this be a pressing issue for me to actually ask about? Right. So this whole thing about, so how do you ensure a successful collaboration with other teams? Yeah, definitely give your response, right? And maybe share a scenario of how you successfully collaborated. But then you might want to ask a follow-up question, right? In after you provide your response, and ask, hey, Dean, so, how are you folks currently dealing with collaborations on your team? Are you experiencing any challenges in that area? If so, what are the challenges? Again, this is where you can stimulate a discussion and further probe, investigate, and discover problem areas within the organization, folks, right? Always ask yourself, why are they asking me this question? What would motivate someone to ask me such a question? Is it possible that they might be experiencing the same issue at their organization? So this is where you got to evaluate these things, folks, right? And again, final example I have is, how do you deal with problem XYZ in relation to a project? Same thing. They're not just asking you about your ability to handle problem XYZ, whatever XYZ is. The clue in this question is they themselves might be experiencing problem XYZ, and that's why they're asking you about it. Now, you can certainly respond to it and give your example of how you dealt with problem XYZ and leave it at that. You can definitely do that. I'm not saying it's going to reflect negatively on you. Not at all. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, if you want to leg up, if you want to separate yourself from all the other candidates who are simply going to respond to a question and leave it at that and move on to the next question, if you want to separate yourself from other people and instead position yourself, folks, as taking a very consultative approach, then you got to probe, you got to investigate, you got to figure out furthermore whether this question being asked is an opportunity for you to ask your own follow-up question and further probe and investigate, right? So again, with this final example, hey Dean, so how do you deal with problem XYZ in relation to such and such project? I give my response, right? I say, well, if in regards to problem, blah, 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 this is what I would do, this is the process I did, these were the results, blah, 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 all that stuff. And then then I'm thinking, okay, why is this interviewer asking me about how I deal with problem XYZ? Right? Why are they asking me that? Well, this is what I'm mentally thinking, right? I'm mentally evaluating this now. I'm thinking, okay, I gave my response. Now, why is this person asking me this question? Well, it's probably because they themselves are experiencing problem XYZ. So I finish my response, and then I'm like, hey, so Mr. and Mrs. Interviewer, do you find that at your organization in relation to this project, are you experiencing the same project? And is that why you wanted to ask me about this? Now, maybe you don't want to, add that last part. Is that why you want to ask me about this? I personally would. Again, you gotta do it how it fits your personality, folks, right? But that's what I would do, right? I would give my response, and then I would ask that follow-up question. I would say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Interviewer, do you find that you're experiencing this exact same challenge or similar problem at your organization? They might say, yeah, we are definitely experiencing that. Okay, great. What are some of the challenges you're facing, and what steps are you currently taking to address this? And would this be a major part of this position in terms of your expectations on what you want me to do for you in this position? So this is how you get the conversation stimulating. You stimulate the conversation, folks, and you start talking about their problem, their challenges, their project, what their pain points are, right? So so my point is, look, at the end of the day, folks, if you simply respond to the question and you give an excellent response, chances are, it's definitely very possible you'll continue in the process. You might, you'll get the second interview, the third interview, the final interview. It's not going to be a complete, negative if you don't probe and investigate the way I'm saying. But if you want to put yourself in a position of power where you're in a position where you're really probing, investigating, discovering what the problem areas are, what the problem issue is, what challenges the organization is facing, you got to be thinking on a strategic level. You got to be thinking like a consultant. And all of you, by the way, all of you in tech, all right, all of you, most of you following me are in tech. You already do this in your jobs. I'm not telling you anything new. This is nothing new to any of you. You folks are all doing this already. It's just that you're not applying it to your interviews. So at your interviews, when you're being asked a question and you're responding to the question, first of all, first and foremost, I want you to listen 100% to the question being asked. Because if you don't understand and listen to the question, you're not able to process it effectively and evaluate it, right? Next is you want to give your response, obviously, right? And then after you provided your response, I want you to figure out, is there a read between the lines kind of a question here? Or is there a read between the lines kind of a problem that the organization is facing? And that's why they're even asking me this question, right? So always remember this, folks, right? When you're being asked a question by an interviewer, right? And this mostly applies if you're being asked the question directly with an actual decision maker or stakeholder or someone who's actually very much involved with the position and the role. You need to figure out, why are they asking me this question? What are they really trying to find out? And does this question give me a clue as to what problems and challenges they're facing at their organization or in their department or in relation to this project? So very important, folks. Again, I'm going to repeat those three mental questions you need to ask yourself when you're during or after your response to an interview question. Number one, why? And again, before you even get to that, you have to remove yourself from your own body. Use your imagination or whatever mental tricks you want to do. Remove yourself from you. Mentally leave your own body. Put yourself in the interviewer's body, in their shoes, in their brain, in their head. And you then need to ask yourself these three questions. Why are they asking me this question? Right? What are they really trying to find out? And does this question give a clue as to whatever problem this organization is experiencing or whatever challenge in relation to the organization, the department, the project, whatever the case is? That's what you need to ask yourself, folks, right? So look, I hope this information was helpful. I do see a couple of questions here. A lot of you folks shared some great sample questions, so I'm going to go over those shortly. We got a comment here: excellent observations and advice. There's a good reason that I tell everyone to follow Dean. Hey, I really appreciate that. I think if I had to guess, my guess would be that this is Imal, my friend Imal. So shout out to you, Imal. I appreciate you tuning in. Unfortunately, it doesn't put the name, so if it's someone else, my apologies for that. But I think this is Imal for sure. So thanks so much for that feedback. Sonia says, good stuff. Great job, Don Dean. Don Dean. Yeah, I appreciate that, Sonia. Thanks so much for your feedback. Appreciate that. So, folks, at this point, I want everyone to put any of your job search questions you have for me. Job search questions, resume tips. You need resume tips or advice, interview questions, tips or advice, negotiating tips or advice, salary, rate negotiation tips and advice. Put all your questions in the comments. I'm going to get to the questions right now. But I'm first going to evaluate any of those sample questions that all of you have provided that might have a hidden meaning, right? Just like which was today's topic, a hidden meaning, or it's providing information about a problem that they're experiencing at the organization. So let me just go through the questions right now. So I have a question from Pankaj. So Pankaj says, I'm happy in my current job and enjoy working in current role. How to describe it? Yeah, so I'm not sure what exactly you're asking there, Pankaj. You're happy in your current job and enjoy working in current role. How to describe it? Yeah, I mean, if you're happy in your current role and you enjoy working where you are, and I'm assuming you're being headhunted maybe, and that's what you're asking. Like if recruiters reach out to you and you're not looking, but you're happy where you are, how do you deal with that? Well, just let them know, right? You're happy where you're at, and you enjoy where you're working, and what you're doing and all of that. Now, if it was me as a recruiter, even though you would be working, and I feel like you're a great candidate for the role, I would still try to persuade you into giving me time to let you know more about the opportunity, right? But that depends on the skill level of the recruiter, right? So, but I hope I answered your question, Pankaj. So someone says, what is your weakness? Yeah, this would probably be a question that does not really apply to today's topic, to whoever asked this, but it's still definitely a great question, right? In terms of what is your weakness. But in terms of hidden meaning and read between the lines, or whether it discloses certain challenges the organization is facing, probably not. I mean, it's not something you can really evaluate from such a question. But that being said, if you were asked what is your weakness, so just some advice on if you're asked this question, folks, you definitely want to describe a weakness that you might have, right? But don't just leave it at that, and don't give some prepared response like from Google that says, oh well, my greatest weakness is that I'm a really hard worker. Like, stay away from that, folks. It's kind of lame, right? It's kind of lame and cheesy. So stay away from that. What you want to do is actually share a weakness that you have, but don't leave it at just sharing your weakness. You want to show what steps you're taking, or have taken, or are taking, to overcome the weakness, right? Because what they're looking for is first of all, they're seeing how self-conscious you are, how self-aware and self-conscious you are, and realistic you are about your limitations and areas of improvement. That's what they're trying to actually, you know what? Now, come to think of it, there is a hidden meaning behind this question, and that's exactly what they're trying to find out. They're trying to find out how self-aware you are, how self-conscious you are, and how aware you are of your areas of improvement and weakness. That's what they're really trying to find out, actually. So I take back what I said before about this not applying to today's topic. My bad. But that's what they're really trying to find out, right? So that being said, you have to respond with what your weakness is, and you got to identify strategically what weakness you wanna mention, and you then want to go into what steps you're taking or have taken to accommodate or overcome the weakness, and possibly get into end results, right? Results, or what's happened since you've been making those changes and improvements, and how that's resulted to you positively. So it's a great question, actually, right? So there definitely is a hidden meaning. I would say, at this point, probably it is possible that most questions might have a hidden, read between the lines kind of a thing to it in terms of what they want to find out. So Jonathan, shout out to Jonathan. Thanks so much for tuning in, Jonathan. So Jonathan says, why did you think you're a good fit for this role? Okay, so again, Jonathan, I would say that again, what they're really trying to find out is firstly your understanding of the role, right? So they're probably trying to find out not just why you think you're a good fit for the role, but they're also probably trying to find out as well how much effort and research and initiative has this individual taken in getting to know more about the role, the position, maybe researching the company and the organization, and then going in with their response as to why they feel they're a good fit for the role. And they're also trying to find out how self-aware you are in terms of highlighting your strengths, your most attractive attributes in respect to being a potential viable candidate for the role. So I wouldn't say, Jonathan, this is strongly tied to today's topic, simply because today's topic was more so questions whereby you had to read between the lines and stuff like that. I wouldn't say this is one of those questions, but it's still a great question and definitely something that you will get asked. So my advice is, if this is being asked, at right at the start of the conversation, and the only other information you had prior to that was the job description, then you need to conduct your research on the job description, the role. If you had a primary point of contact, you had an initial pre-screening, that's where you had to probe further about the role and the responsibilities and all that stuff. And basically present yourself with the most relevant information that shows why you're the ideal candidate for the role, right? So hope that helps, Jonathan, and thanks so much for your question. So Rosemary says, the question is how to add value. I think the response depends on what is being required for the specific job. I know overall how I add value, but I'm beginning to think that the response depends on the specific job. 100%, Rosemary. Yeah, absolutely. Your evaluation is I completely agree with your evaluation. When they ask, how do you add value, folks, what they really ask is, and again, this is one of those questions where there is kind of a hidden unspoken question. And that question would be not just how do you add value, but how do you, Rosemary, add value to this particular position for this particular project? at this particular department, at this particular company. That's what they're really trying to ask and find out, right? So definitely there. My if there's one takeaway I want all of you folks to take away from this, and sorry, I'm not ignoring all of you on Instagram there. I'm not looking at the camera. Apologies for that. But the one takeaway is you do not take the question at surface level, folks. You do not want to just listen to the question and take it at a surface level. You always got to be asking, is there, again, why are they asking the question? What are they trying to really find out? And does this question give a clue as to what problem that they have at their organization? So I would say this question probably, the first two questions apply to this, Rosemary. But yeah, great question, and thanks for asking that. So Luke says, so the interview question is, what makes you better than the other candidates we interviewed? Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of a tricky question, Luke, right? Because you have not met the other candidates. So you're not really in a position to evaluate the other candidates. But what I would do is I would focus on, what you bring to the table, right? What value you bring to the table, and what makes you unique, right? Because your professional experience, the project you worked on, the projects you worked on, all that stuff. As long as it's relevant, you want to present yourself as someone unique due to your experiences, right? The types of projects you've done, the types of companies you worked at, your unique experiences that you bring to the table. But I do want to stress, Luke, it has to be relevant stuff, because you talking about irrelevant stuff that doesn't really appeal to the project that this companies want you to work on, or their challenges, their problem areas, and all that stuff. If it's not relevant, it won't capture their attention. What you want to do is highlight the relevant aspects, show how given the relevance of all these projects, how unique your experience has been, and why that will make you a very unique and prime fit for the position. So given the fact that you don't have access to the other candidates, and you might not be, it's no one does, right? Like no one knows how the other candidates fit into the whole interview process. So I would rather put the focus on what the value you bring to the table based on your ability to solve the problem and whatever challenge the organization is facing and looking for you to take care of. All right. So thanks for your question, Luke. Hope that's great. Narinda says, hello, Dean. How are you? Hey, I'm doing great. And Narinda Kumar, thanks for tuning in. Great to see you here. We got a question here from Hema. Why you want this job? Why we hired you? Why you want this job? So yeah, the first part of the question, Hema, you got to relate that to the opportunity at the company to your own career goals, your aspirations, and your relevant experience. You want to tie all of that in together. The second part of the question, why we hired you, I'm not sure what you're asking there. Or maybe you're asking why would we hire you? So again, same thing, right? You got to focus on relevant experience, relevant projects, or transferable skill set, and then connect that with your career aspirations, your long-term career goals, and then tie those two in with the opportunity at the company, right? So you're letting them know that your experience is relevant, and is relevant from your perspective because it matches your career goals and your aspirations. And it's also relevant for them because it ties in with what they're looking for in an ideal candidate for this position, for this opportunity, right? So you got to tie all those three things together. So thanks for that. Alona says, hi. Hey, Alona, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you tuning in and watching. Kostab says, I'm sure if it's, so hopefully, Kostab, the audio issue is solved. Vinita says, what value can you bring to the company? So Vinita, this goes back to the question I responded to in that Rosemary asked. So it's pretty much the same response. So feel free to rewind this after the replay is after the session is done, and if you want to listen to that again. But it's basically the same question Rosemary asked. So that would be my advice on that. So Richa's hey Richa, how's it going? So Richa's question is, what appeals to you about this role? So yeah, again, Richa, this kind of connects with I guess Hima's question, right? So you have to what you got to figure out is first and foremost, what the role offers, right? The details about the role, whether it's a career opportunity, you're learning new things, learning new tools, new technologies, frameworks, whatever it is, and then connect that with your own career goals and aspirations. So that's how you have to present that to the client or to the organization, right? So you might say, hey, so Mr. and Mrs. Interviewer, the reason why this role really appeals to me is, given my career aspirations are in XYZ, and that's what my end goal is, and what I'm aspiring to do in my career. And because of that, and because of all of this relevant experience I bring to the table, and I understand at your organization for this position, you need someone with ABC, and which is exactly what I bring to the table. And given that, there's a very clear link between my career goals, Mr. and Mrs. Interviewer, as well as what this position and opportunity offers. So because of that, I really feel that this is a great opportunity for me, and that's the reason why it really strongly appeals to me. Now, I know I kind of oversimplified things over, in that explanation, Richa, but that's the basic connection you got to make in terms of your career aspirations, your relevant experience, which you bring to the table, and the opportunity at the company. And you got to tie all those in together, and then that's how you show them and showcase them and persuade them as to why this is the perfect opportunity for you as well. And also in regards to connecting this to today's session, the unspoken question being asked here is not just why Richa feels it's a great opportunity for her. They're trying to find out at their end whether she's going to stick around for a while, right? That's what they're really trying to figure out. What they're trying to figure out is, hey, Richa, the unspoken question is, Richa, are you going to stick around here? That's what they're really trying to find out. Does it make sense for Richa to stick around here? And does this opportunity make sense for her, so that we're not investing money in someone who's just going to come on board, maybe stick around just for a short while and then move on to something else? That's the unspoken question, right? So that's the unspoken question. And now the other thing is, in regards to a potential problem, that unspoken problem that they might be alluding to by asking you this question is, it's possible that other people have joined the organization, where they joined the organization, they stuck around for a bit and then moved on to something else. That could be a hidden problem, right? So hope that helps, Richa. So again, folks, a lot of these questions, they will have a hidden agenda as to what they're asking. Rosemary says, tell me about you. Yeah, so Rosemary, this is probably not a question with like a hidden agenda or something. They're just asking you to talk about yourself. So they want to know who you are, right? Who is Rosemary? So, and that's something I'll probably cover this question in a different live stream, because it's a pretty broad and commonly asked question, right? So I'll definitely get to that, Rosemary, but thanks for running that by us. Sonia says they are checking your communication and teamwork. Yeah. Sonia was going by that example I gave. Yeah, absolutely. They are definitely checking for that, Sonia. But again, Sonia, keep in mind, don't just think of it on a surface level, right? You always got to figure out whether there's other unspoken questions or concerns, or if it's alluding to an existing problem at the organization. So always keep that in mind. Sonia says, true, Don Dean. I tell people to pay attention to the questions and answer with the job description and values of the company in mind, not just the first thought that crosses your mind. Yeah, absolutely, Sonia. Yeah, for sure. Right? You got to make sure you're listening to the question completely and thoroughly before you start formulating a response and responding to the actual question. So great comment there, Sonia. So Pankaj says, why do I want to change? So why do you want to change? Yeah. So this is where, Pankaj, if you're interviewing at an organization, they want to find out that so what they're really asking, right? If they ask you, so Pankaj, why are you looking to change organizations? They definitely want to know what your motivation is for changing the organization, simply because they don't want to invest in someone and then have them join the company, and the company ends up not meeting the candidate's expectations and criteria, and then end up leaving the company, right? So what they're really trying to find out is there really a good mutual fit here, and does it make sense for Pankaj to join our organization, and does it make sense from our end to make the investment in Pankaj, and is he going to stick around a while? So when they ask you why are you looking for a change, they're trying to find out your motivations and why the opportunity at their organization is it makes sense for you, and by making sense for you, how it could potentially make sense for them at their end of the organization if they're going to make the investment in you, right? So I hope that helps, Pankaj. Great question. Manju. So Manju, thanks for your question. So Manju says, I just completed a QA automation testing course. I would like to know how I should be applying for jobs, as I don't have any experience to show. Yeah, so hold on, let me read the question again. I just completed a QA automation testing course. I would like to know how I should be applying for jobs, as I don't have any experience to show. Yeah, well, Manju, so I'm not sure what your background is, Manju, but look, a lot of you folks, you're making a transition into a different, career or different type of a field. And the first thing all of you folks are thinking is, I don't have any experience to show. So firstly, folks, you got to stop thinking that way. That's a negative. That you're thinking negatively, right? When you go into applying for jobs and interviews with that thought, with that mindset, it's going to affect how you sell yourself, and how you present yourself as a candidate, right? So first and foremost, Manju, stop thinking that thought. Stop thinking I don't have any experience to show. Because the fact is, I'm assuming you might have some previous experience, Manju, right? I'm not sure if your background, I can't see your LinkedIn profile right now, but I would assume you have some other experience. And whether that experience is relevant or not, I'm not asking you to focus on that. What I want you to focus on is the fact that you do have previous experience, maybe in a different type of position. Now, what you need to do is you need to look at those previous positions, and you need to focus on the transferable skill sets. What skill sets do you have, Manju, that are transferable into a QA automation testing position? That's what you need to focus on. And the second thing is, since you just completed a QA automation testing course, Manju, in your case, I mean, start building your own portfolio. Create some sample test cases and scenarios and automation. Using some automation tools, right? The most popular one is Selenium. I don't know if you use Selenium or some other tool, but whatever the tool is, like start building your own portfolio, Manju, so you can actually say, yeah, maybe I have not worked as an QA automation tester, but here's my portfolio. Here's some work I can show you that I've been personally doing, that I can actually showcase, right? So think about it that way, Manju, right? Maybe you don't have directly relevant experience in your previous positions. Look for a transferable skill set. Focus on the transferable skill set. Second thing is start building your own portfolio. If you don't have any experience at all, build your own portfolio that you can demonstrate and say, yeah, I've never worked. I don't have professional experience as a QA automation tester, but here's my portfolio. And then you show the portfolio, right? So hope that helps, Manju. Great question. So we got another question here is, how do you deal with a large number of stakeholders in a cross-functional corporate setting? So I'm not sure if so whoever asked this question, I'm not sure if you're asking this from an interview standpoint or from like a day-to-day career, job standpoint. Now, if it's from an interview standpoint, first and foremost, you need to be your point of contact, whoever it is, they should give you an idea of who you're going to be meeting with at the interview, right? So if it's a large number of stakeholders, they should be giving you a heads up as to who you'll be meeting with, right? And that's the ideal scenario. Totally get it, folks. Sometimes your point of contact might not even tell you who you're going to be meeting with. But you need to be asking, if you have an interview schedule, you need to be asking your point of contact, whoever it is. Maybe it's a staffing agency, maybe it's a corporate recruiter, maybe it's the actual hiring manager. You need to be asking. So in preparation for the interview, Mr. and Mrs. Point of Contact, who will I be meeting with and who will be present at this interview? That's the first step, folks. You need to find out who you're meeting with. Second step is you need to be interviewing all these individuals on LinkedIn. Most people are on LinkedIn. Maybe there might be a handful of people you can't find on LinkedIn. So you need to go on LinkedIn. You need to look up their profiles, not add them right away. You don't want to add them before you met them, right? But what you want to do is you want to research them. You want to research their backgrounds and get an idea of where they fit into the organization, right? Into the organization or into the team or the department or the project. And this is where you, as a professional in your field, doing that research should be able to determine or at least make some estimated, educated guesses as to where they fit in the interview cycle or not the interview cycle, sorry, but as a stakeholder, where do they fit in? What weight would they carry on a final decision? So again, this is where you got to do some legwork, folks. You got to do your research. You got to do some legwork, and you got to figure out where these people potentially stand. And at the interview itself, make sure, folks, make sure you do not ignore anyone on that interview panel. You need to be acknowledging, paying attention to, and making eye contact with everyone on the interview panel. Now, the majority of your eye contact should go to the person asking you the question, but you need to make, eye contact with everyone else that's present, right? Don't ignore, someone. Especially, if it's someone non-technical, you might think, oh yeah, that's not a technical person. Their opinion won't matter. I don't need to pay any attention to them. Or maybe you're just nervous or anxious, right? Regardless, folks, do not ignore anyone at the interview panel. If there's multiple stakeholders and it's cross-functional, pay attention to everyone, right? Majority of the eye contact should go to the person asking you the question, but you need to take turns and make sure you're acknowledging everyone present in the room, right? So hope that helps in regards to your question. So, but I'm not sure who asked this question, but it's a great question. But thanks for asking. We got a hi from someone. Hi back. Thanks so much for tuning in. We got a question from Kate. So Kate says, if asked to walk through your resume, where do you start and do you talk in details or summarize? Yeah, so Kate, firstly, it depends on who, and this is a great question, by the way. So shout out to Kate. Appreciate your question. So Kate, first thing is it depends on who you're speaking with, right? That's the first thing you got to determine. And who you're speaking with will help you determine how much detail you get into, right? And the reason why I emphasize this, Kate, is let's say you're speaking to a fellow technical person, right? And I'm not sure if you're in IT or not, Kate, but I'm assuming you're in IT. But let's say you're speaking to a fellow technical person, then you probably can get into more details and specifics in regards to what you did on this particular project. Now, if it's a non-technical person, if it's a recruiter, for example, or an HR person, or someone of that sort, it's going to help you evaluate how much detail you want to get into, and whether or not this person's even going to understand what you're even talking about, right? So it's simply knowing who you're going to be speaking with definitely helps, right? Now, the second part is if they're simply asking you to just run you through their resume. Second part is you gotta know, based on your research or maybe on your previous conversations with this individual, you need to make a mental note of which projects you have, Kate, that will be most relevant to this person, to this individual, or to this department, or to this organization. Because when you're running people through your resume, you want to mention the most relevant aspects, the most relevant projects. No matter how many impressive projects you might have, Kate, right? No matter how impressive, right? And definitely you probably have a lot of impressive projects. But the ones that are most going to capture the attention of the person you're speaking to are the most relevant projects, right? Always keep that in mind, folks. And this goes for all of you listening in. The ones that are most going to capture their attention are the most relevant projects and most relevant experience, most relevant technology, most relevant tools, frameworks, all that stuff. That's the other point. And then the final thing is, when you're finally getting into running them through your resume, my suggested framework, Kate, start at the organization level, right? So explain what, which organization, what the organization was, more details about the organization. Next, you want to go into the department or division or team level, right? So within company ABC, I was at such and such division. This division was responsible for XYZ. Within this division, I was in team blah blah blah, and this team was responsible for such and such types of projects. And then after the project level, Kate, you want to get into your individual and team contribution, right? So within this project, Dean, we worked on within this project, Dean, as a team, we were responsible for XYZ. My personal contribution was, ABC. Such and such was what we did as a team. Such and such was what I did and what I accomplished as an individual. And these were the results, right? So at a very simple, framework, folks: organization level, department level, team level, project level, and then contribution level, right? And the contribution level, you're talking about team contribution and individual contribution. So hope that helps, Kate. Great question. So someone asked, how do you handle clients? So this is how do you handle clients if there is any conflict, such as a project not completed on time or any other situation that comes up? So this is a fantastic and perfect question that relates to today's topic, right? Looking for the hidden, the hidden problem, the reading between the lines. So if you're at an interview, and shout out to whoever asked this question. It's a great question. So if you're at an interview, folks, and you get asked this question, so Dean, how do you handle clients if there's any conflict, such as a project not completed on time or any other situation that comes up? Now, you can definitely speak about a scenario where you experienced this, and you can, show how you handled it, how you responded to it, how you overcame this challenge, and all of that stuff, and successful results, all that stuff. You definitely want to give that response. But what is not being what is this question really disclose, folks? Right? What does it tell you? It tells you, like, why would an interviewer be asking this question? Well, from the looks of it, what this tells me is that they are experiencing the exact same problem at their organization, right? That's the reason why they're asking this question. They're asking this question because they're experiencing this very same scenario at the organization, on the project, at this organization, for this particular department or team or whatever it is. So what they're really trying to find out is, how would you go about, if you were brought into this position and you had to deal with, these issues that they're experiencing, how would you deal with this, right? And they're asking that again because they themselves are experiencing this, right? So at their organization, so what this question tells me is that their project is not being completed on time, right? Or there's some other situation that came up. But the bottom line is, from this question, if they would ask me this question, I would know right away, it is possible that they're behind, they're behind on the project delivery. That's what that tells me. So after you give your response, and it looks like it was Richa who asked that question. Awesome question, Richa. So yeah, so Richa, so how I would respond to that is, so give your response, right? You want to give an example of how you would handle that, how you deliver response. How you would deliver the solution or whatever. But then after you finish responding, Richa, you need to ask that follow-up question, because this is a major hint that this is a key problem area for them on their project. And you want to use this as an opportunity to further probe, investigate, and discover more information about the problem, and further open up more opportunities for you to sell yourself as an ideal candidate for the position, right? So after responding, Richa, I would actually say, hey, Dean, so, would you say that your team or your department, your organization, or your team is experiencing this in your current project? Are you experiencing, like, is there a backlog going on right now? Are you experiencing a delay in delivering the project? Is that what's happening right now, Dean? And then I say, yeah, Richa, I mean, we are experiencing that right now. And then that's where, Richa, you got to further probe and investigate. You got to ask questions now to further open up the conversation now and learn more about the problem that they're experiencing as to why their project is being delayed. And they probably have to handle like irate, angry customers right now, right? That's why they're asking, how do you handle clients in such a scenario? So this is where you open up the conversation, Richa, right? So you got to ask them, okay, got it, Dina. Yeah, I totally understand that. So what's causing the delay, Dean? Like what's happened? Like, has it been a delay in delivering the work, or the I can't remember the term right now, but hopefully you folks understand what I'm saying. So this is where all of you, and most of you are in tech, you got to put your consulting hat on, right? Put your consulting hat on. You got to now troubleshoot what the problem is. Why is the project being delayed? In the interview, this is how you position yourself as someone with a very consultative approach, right? Now they get to actually see how Richa operates as a potential candidate for this position. They're going to get a sample of how she's going to probe, investigate, ask questions, understand the problem, and propose a possible solution. So instead of them asking you a whole bunch of questions, now Richa has the opportunity to actually show them how she would actually be probing, investigating, discovering what the problem areas are, the issues, and all that stuff, and ultimately delivering the solution, right? So great question, Richa. I hope that helps. Kate says, thanks, Dean. That was a great insight. Yeah, no worries, Kate. I appreciate that. And we got Manju who says, thank you. Awesome. All right, so folks, I'm going to end the session right now. So hope everybody got great value out of the session. So if you felt this session was useful and helpful, folks, make sure you hit like, make sure you share with your network, so that other people can benefit from the information. And let me know in the comments if everyone found this information helpful, if you found it useful, if it made sense. So make sure, folks, you apply today's topic to your interviews, right? So keep in mind, when you're being asked a question, you need to mentally ask yourself 3 questions during or after your response. The first thing is, why are they asking me this question, right? Second mental question you need to ask yourself is, what are they really trying to find out by asking me this question? And the third mental question you got to ask yourself is, what was the third question? I forgot the third question. Does the question reveal to you a problem being experienced by the organization? Right. So let me repeat again, because I fumbled there a bit. So my bad. So question number 1 is, why are they asking the question? Question number 2 is, what are they really trying to find out? And question number 3 is, does the question give a clue as to a problem that the organization themselves are experiencing? Right. So hope this information was helpful. Let me know your feedback in the comments, folks. I'm gonna close off the session, and make sure you mark your calendars. Every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern time zone, I'm tuning in here. I tune here live to talk about various job search topics and share my tips, advice, and strategies to help all of you in your job search. So again, every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern time zone. Shout out to everyone on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Periscope. Shout out to everyone tuning in from Instagram as well. Appreciate you tuning in. And make sure you like, comment, share, folks. And appreciate everyone tuning in. And have a fantastic week ahead. Thanks so much.